We praise the women who move through the world like oil on troubled water. We call them the anchors, the peacemakers, the ones with the endless capacity to absorb. They are the friends who never demand, the partners who never complain, the daughters who tuck their own lives into the margin so someone else can occupy the center page. They are so good, we say, our voices dripping with a reverence that masks a quiet utility. It is very convenient to love someone who does not require you to negotiate. But if you look closely at these women, the ones who carry the weight of everyone else's comfort like an invisible heavy mantle, you will notice a fraying at the edges. The skin tells a story of systematic exhaustion, the joints harbor a deep aching friction. The digestion falters, the sleep becomes a shallow purgatory, and eventually the diagnosis arrives. It bears a clinical sterile name: lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, multiple sclerosis. The body quite literally begins to devour itself. We treat these conditions as structural glitches, random unfortunate breakdowns of human machinery. We hand out prescriptions, chart inflammation makers, and curse genetic luck. But we rarely ask the heavier, more terrifying question: what if the illness isn't a malfunction? What if it is a translation? For decades, the culture script has insisted that a woman's value is directly proportional to her willingness to disappear. We have raised generations of girls to believe that to be loved, they must be easy, to be safe, they must be compliant. But the human organism was not designed for perpetual self-erasure. When you swallow your boundaries, your no and your righteous fury, day after day to protect your relationships, that unexpressed energy does not evaporate, it stays inside. It settles into the tissue, wraps around the nerves, and alters the cellular landscape. If you spend a lifetime refusing to fight the forces that cross your boundaries, your immune system eventually steps in to do the fighting for you. To understand how a personality trait becomes a physical affliction, we have to look at the archaeology of human development. No one is born a chronic people pleaser. It is not an inherited trait written into the human genome. It is a meticulous, brilliant piece of psychological adaptation. A human infant is one of the most vulnerable creatures on the planet. A newborn horse can stand within an hour of birth. A human child cannot survive for a single day without the absolute unyielding investment of an adult caregiver. Because of this radical dependency, the human brain has evolved to prioritize connections above almost everything else. We are wired for proximity. In psychological terms, this is the tension between two non-negotiable human imperatives: attachment and authenticity. Attachment is the need for connection and safety, while authenticity is the need to express the true self. Attachment is your lifeline. It is the assurance that when you cry, someone will come. It is food, warmth, protection, and shelter. Authenticity is your internal truth. It is the capacity to know what you feel, what you need, and who you are, and to express that reality without filter. It is your anger when you are violated, your sorrow when you are hurt, and your joy when you are free. In an ideal world, these two needs live in harmony. A child feels a surge of frustration, stomps her foot, says no, and her parents hold space for that emotion. They show her that even when she is angry, loud, or inconvenient, she is still safe. The attachment remains intact. But the world is rarely ideal. More often, a child encounters environments where her authenticity poses a direct threat to her attachment. Perhaps she has a parent who becomes overwhelmed and emotionally cold whenever there is a display of big, loud emotion. Perhaps she learns that she only receives warm, focused attention when she is achieving, helping, or being perfectly quiet. Perhaps she watches a chaotic household and realizes that her only path to safety is to become invisible, to never create a problem, to be the low-maintenance child who needs nothing. When a child is forced to choose between the two, attachment wins every single time. It has to. Authenticity is a luxury of the safe. Attachment is a matter of life and death. If being myself means losing you, I will gladly abandon myself to keep you close. This self-abandonment is not a failure of character, it is a profound act of intelligence. The young mind calculates the emotional climate of the home and adjusts its sails accordingly. It buries the anger, silences the complaints, and adopts a posture of perpetual agreeableness. The child learns the rules of survival. First, your needs are a burden to others, keep them small. Second, other people's mood are your responsibility, learn to read the room before you breathe. 3. Conflict is dangerous, appease at all costs. Over years of repetition, these adjustments harden. They cease to look like strategies and begin to look like identity. The child grows up, looks in the mirror, and says, I'm just a really nice, easygoing person. I don't really get angry. I love taking care of people. This is what Dr. Gabor Maté refers to as wallpaper. It is an adaptation so deeply integrated into the background of our lives that we no longer see it. We take immense pride in our patience, our selflessness, and our capacity to endure. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, completely blind to the fact that our celebrated niceness is actually a chronic low-grade survival response. We are still that 4-year-old child, hyper-vigilant, standing on an invisible precipice, terrifyingly aware that if we step out of our character, the floor might fall away. Most people are deeply familiar with the classic lexicon of stress, fight or flight. We understand the physiology of the threat response, the racing heart, the surge of adrenaline, the instinct to either square our shoulders against a predator or bolt for the nearest exit. We know what it looks like when an organism enters survival mode. But when you are small, weak, or trapped, neither of those options is viable. If a child fights an overwhelming or volatile parent, she loses. If she runs, she has nowhere to go. Her nervous system is forced to find a third way, an alternative strategy that subverts conflict without confrontation. Fawning is the strategic capitulation of the self. It is the survival mechanism of those who cannot afford alienate the powerful. To see fawning in its purest state, look at a playground. When a vulnerable child is targeted by a bully, she may not have the physical strength to fight back, nor the speed to run away. If she freezes, she remains an easy target. So she tries something brilliant. She becomes the bully's best friend. She laughs at his cruel jokes, hands over her lunch money with a smile, and anticipates his desires before he can voice them. She uses warmth as a shield. She makes herself useful, pleasant, and compliant because her nervous system knows that an amused predator is a non-lethal predator. We carry this exact biology into our adult lives. Consider the social interactions that women experience daily. When a woman is approached by an aggressive, strange man in a public space and her internal alarm system is screaming that something is wrong, what does she do? Rarely does she turn around and coldly say, "Leave me alone." Instead, she smiles nervously, she laughs at his jokes that are not funny, she offers polite, soft excuses for why she has to leave. This is not politeness, it is niceness. It is a calculated, subconscious survival maneuver executed by an endangered nervous system. Her body has decided that being warm is infinitely safer than being honest. The tragedy of the chronic fawner is that this emergency setting becomes the default operation system. The individual fawns not just for safety in moments of acute danger, but in every meeting, every text message, every relationship, and every conversation. The text message that cannot be sent without 3 exclamation points and an emoji, lest the recipient think she is angry. The restaurant order that is completely wrong but eaten anyway with a quiet smile because pointing out the mistake would make her a burden to the server. The extra workload accepted without a murmur even as her calendar bleeds into her sleeping hours because saying no feels like an invitation to abandonment. When you fawn, you are essentially making an offering to the world. If I can keep all of you happy, comfortable, and regulated, you won't hurt me. If I can anticipate your every need, you won't leave me. It is a life spent walking on eggshells, unaware that you are the one who laid them there in the first place. The mind can self-deceive. It can construct beautiful narratives about holiness, martyrdom, kindness, spiritual generosity to justify its own subjugation. You can convince yourself that you don't mind the extra work, that you don't care about the slight, that you are perfectly happy to give up your weekend again. But the body does not participate in our psychological fiction. The body keeps an honest ledger. When you suppress an emotion, particularly a boundary protecting emotion like anger, you are not destroying it. Emotion is energy in motion. It has physical mass. When you refuse to let it exist through the throat, the tears, or the voice, you force it to travel inward. To hold down a swell of genuine rage or grief requires immense physiological effort. You must tighten your jaw, constrict your chest, shallow your breath, and brace your muscles. This internal bracing triggers the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. The brain doesn't care that the threat is internal, it simply registers that the system is under stress. Consequently, the body triggers a slow, continuous leak of stress chemicals, cortisol and adrenaline. In brief bursts, cortisol is a lifesaver. It reduces inflammation and mobilizes energy so you can escape a threat. But when cortisol flows through your bloodstream continuously for years because you cannot say no to your boss, your spouse, or your family, the body's tissues become desensitized to it. The system loses its natural anti-inflammatory brakes. The immune system, bathed in a toxic soup of chronic distress signals, begins to lose its orientation. To truly understand the link between people-pleasing and autoimmune disease, we must examine the beautiful poetic parallel between our psychological architecture and our biological defenses. What is the purpose of anger? In our modern, polite society, we treat anger like a character flaw, a primitive, ugly impulse that needs to be managed or eliminated. But anger is actually a vital, protective mechanism. It is the guard dog of the psyche. Anger is the immediate response that arises when an external force breaches your psychological borders. It is the energy that rises up to say, "This is not okay, you cannot treat me this way, step back." It is the mechanism that preserves the integrity of the self. Now consider the immune system. What is its fundamental purpose? It is the biological border patrol of the organism. Every single second, your immune system is performing a brilliant silent evaluation. Is this self or is this non-self? If it encounters a piece of lung tissue, it says this is self. Protect it, leave it alone. If it encounters a virus, a bacterium, or a splinter, it says this is non-self. It is an intruder. Attack it, destroy it, expel it. The immune system is the physical guardian of your boundaries. When a woman spends 30, 40, or 50 years systematically disabling her psychological guard dog, swallowing her anger, allowing her borders to be trampled, pretending that things are fine when they are devastating, she is sending a continuous message to her biology. The preservation of the self does not matter. The comfort of the non-self is more important than my own integrity. Over time, the biology follows the psychology. The border patrol becomes profoundly disoriented. The immune system loses its capacity to distinguish between the helper and the attacker. It looks at the body's own joints, myelin sheath, or thyroid tissues and misidentifies it as an invader. And in a tragic, literal mirror of the woman's life, the immune system decides to stop fighting the outside world and turns its fury inward. Instead of comforting the external forces that cross its borders, it wages a war of attrition against itself. This is not a theoretical abstraction. It is borne out in decades of clinical observation. In the mid-20th century, cardiologist Meyer Friedman and Ray Rosenman famously coined the term type A to describe the hyper-aggressive, time-urgent competitive personality profile that was highly subspecial to her disease. Years later, researchers like psychologist Dr. Lydia Timoshuk, while studying cancer and chronic illness patients, realized there was an equally distinct, highly toxic behavioral profile at the opposite end of the spectrum. Dr. Timoshuk noted that these individuals were often described by their doctors, friends, and families as the nicest people you could ever meet. They were patients who, when diagnosed with advanced terminal illness, were more deeply worried about how their diagnosis would stress their family than about their own survival. They were pathologically uncomplaining. It is an undeniable, stark epidemiological reality. An overwhelming 80% of all individuals diagnosed with autoimmune diseases are women. If this were a purely genetic or mechanical glitch, the distribution would be balanced, but it is not. The numbers scream of a systematic cultural toxin. The reason for this skew is simple. Women are handed the type C blueprint at birth, while a man who stands his ground, speaks with authority, and enforces fierce boundaries is culturally validated as a leader. A woman who exhibits the same behavior is often labeled difficult, aggressive, cold, or selfish. From the time they are small girls, women are conditioned to be the emotional shock absorbers of society. They are taught to smooth over the rough edges of domestic and professional life, to manage the egos and anxieties of those around them, and to do it all with an easy, low-maintenance smile. The very traits that make a woman highly vulnerable to systematic inflammation and immune breakdown, her self-sacrifice, her conflict avoidance, her emotional containment, are the exact qualities that society pathologizes as feminine virtues. We reward women for their slow, polite self-destruction. We give prizes for the behavior that makes them sick. If chronic niceness is a survival strategy that leads to physical breakdown, then the path to health cannot be found in a pill bottle alone. True remission requires a radical systematic revolution of the self. It demands that you dismantle the survivor architecture you built as a child and learn to walk through the world without your protective armor. This is not easy work. It is a profound, terrifying rewriting of your nervous system, score programming. To heal, you must prove to your body a thesis that feels entirely counterintuitive. Disappointment is not the same thing as danger. When you are a child, disappointing an adult really does mean danger. If they pull away, your survival is threatened. But you are no longer 4-year-old. You pay your own rent, feed your own body, and navigate your own life. If someone becomes angry because you cannot help them move this weekend, their anger cannot destroy you. Their disapproval will not kill you. Your mind knows this intellectually, but your nervous system does not. To change the code, you must build what can be thought of as a series of behavioral repetitions. The 3 structural pillars of awakening. The reclamation process. Step 1. Intercept the interrupt. Create space between the request and the response. Step 2. The revolution of tiny disappointments. Run low-stakes experiments in authenticity. Step 3. Sanctify the alarm. Reconnect with anger as a vital somatic boundary. Our pillar number 1, intercept the interrupt. You cannot change a habit that you execute entirely in the dark. For a chronic people pleaser, the word yes is a knee-jerk reflex. It leaves your throat before your conscious mind has even evaluated the request. The first step is to bring this unconscious reflex into the bright light of awareness. You must cultivate a pause. When a request is made, whether it is a project at work or a dinner plan you dread, your immediate goal is not to say no, it is to say nothing at all for 10 seconds. Notice the somatic signature of the request. Does your chest tighten? Do you feel a sudden desperate urge to fix, calm, or soothe the other person? Observe your language. Are you over-explaining your reasons? Are you drafting a text message filled with preemptive apologies and justifications? By simply watching yourself execute the pattern, you begin to create a wedge of space between the external stimulus and your automatic survival response. Within that wedge lies your freedom. Our pillar number 2, the revolution of tiny disappointments. You do not train for a marathon by running 26 miles on day 1. You do not heal a lifetime of people pleasing by calling your most volatile relative and airing 30 years of grievance. That will simply flood your nervous system and send you running back into the safety of compliance. Instead, you must run low stakes experiments in authenticity. You must collect data that shows your body it can survive minor social friction. The cafe repetition. If you order an iced coffee and they hand you a hot tea, do not drink it with a strained smile. Politely say, "Oh, I actually ordered this iced. Could we swap it?" Watch the server say, "Of course." Fix the drink and move on. Notice that the world did not end. The dinner repetitions. When your friend asks where you want to eat and you automatically want to say whatever you want, stop. Say, "I'm actually really craving Thai food tonight." Allow yourself to hold a preference. The text repetition. When someone asks for a favor that you do not have the emotional currency to fulfill, send a short, clear response. "I won't be able to help out with that this time, but I hope it goes well." Do not attach a paragraph of excuses. Do not write a medical history of your exhaustion to justify your boundary. Let the no stand on its own 2 feet. Each time you do this, you are giving your nervous system a tiny dose of exposure therapy. You are showing your body that you can tolerate the brief, cold wind of someone else's slight inconvenience, that you will be still standing when the wind stops blowing. Pillar number 3. Sanctify the alarm. You must make peace with your anger. You must stop treating your frustration like a moral failure and start treating it like highly valuable diagnostic data. When you feel a flash of irritation or resentment, do not talk yourself out of it. Do not tell yourself that you are being unreasonable or that the other person didn't mean it. That resentment is your internal boundary patrol blowing its whistle. It is telling you that someone has crossed a line and that you are currently abandoning yourself to accommodate them. Anger does not require you to become cruel, explosive, or vindictive. True, healthy anger is quiet. It is a solid, clean architectural line. It looks like looking someone in the eye and saying, with absolute calm, "You cannot speak to me in that tone," or "I am not available for this conversation right now." When you allow that energy to be expressed cleanly, you clear it from your body, you prevent it from settling into your tissues as a toxin. You tell your cells that you are safe, that you are protected, and that you do not require a biological mutiny to keep the world at bay. You need the courage to be the villain. There is an uncomfortable truth that every recovering people pleaser must eventually confront. When you start choosing yourself, the people who benefited from your self-erasure are not going to applaud. They will not say, "I'm so glad you're finally setting boundaries." Instead, they will say you have changed. They will say you are being cold, difficult, distant, or selfish. Because to a person who is used to your perpetual compliance, your sudden health looks like an attack. Your boundary looks like a betrayal. To heal, you must find the courage to be the villain in someone else's story. You must realize that it is infinitely better to be disliked by someone else for being authentic than to be adored by them for being a ghost. It is better to endure the awkwardness of a temporary conflict than to endure the systematic fire of a lifelong chronic illness. This is not abandonment of your innate kindness. There is a vast, unbridgeable chasm between kindness born of choice and the niceness born of terror. Niceness is a transaction. It is a currency paid to buy safety, validation, and proximity. It leaves you hollowed out, bitter, and physically depleted. Kindness is an overflow. It is an act of generosity that can only happen when your own cup is sturdy, well-bounded, and full. True kindness knows how to say no because it understands that a yes offered out of fear is nothing but a polite lie. The heavy winter coat you put on 30 years ago to survive the emotional storm of your childhood was an act of genius. It kept you warm, it kept you alive, but the storm has passed. The sun is out, and the heat of your adult life is here. If you do not find the courage to unbutton that coat, drop it on the ground, and step forward in your naked authenticity, that very survival strategy will become the thing that smothers you. Listen to your body. Listen to the ache in your joints, the exhaustion in your blood, and the quiet, persistent rebellion of yourself. They are not broken. They are simply waiting for you to pick up the shield, blow the whistle, and finally take your place as the fierce, uncompromising guardian of your own beautiful life and body.